Hey, hey. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the Three Black Pratt Grads. My name is Kenneth Nelson. I'm here with good friends Mark Skinner and Greg Cleghorn. We are graduates of the Fine Art Photography program at Pratt Institute, hence the association Black Pratt Grads. We also have many years in the photographic business in various forms and shapes and sizes. So that's what we bring to these conversations. These conversations happen once or twice a week, and we just get together to talk about whatever the three of us come up with. Today's topic is mine. It's called Deuces
Please,
Wild.
the photography.
hmm
Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
This episode is called Deuces Wild, and it's something I was thinking about, which is we are all creatures of habit, and we tend to do the same thing over and over again. And as photographers, we tend to do the same thing over and over again. In this particular instance, I thought of an idea as to let's talk about what we've done over again. Just one example, in terms of over an immense period of time. In this particular instance, years. And we just want to sort of peruse a little bit about what we find repeatable in our photographic experiences. And so, with that, Mark is up first. He's going to speak to something of his that he's wants to talk about. So, Mark, it's yours. You want to start with the screen share?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We'll
Let's
start with
go.
your
Let's
screen share.
go.
So thesis on shooting the same thing.
This photograph is a copy of a transparency that was created in 1986 or 7, right? Most likely 1986. When we were at Pratt, because of a lot of other things, the studio class that we had that I was supposed to take got pushed back. I wasn't able to take it at the time I was supposed to be able to take it. And I kind of, in my frustration, decided I was going to start working on studio stuff on my own with all the information I could get. So that by the time I got my class, I could, I'd have work to show and I'd be really excited. And as a starving art student, what I had were those like silver rim lights that used to be able to get pretty much at any little electronics store. They don't really have those kind of stores anymore. But here in New York, on Canal Street, they used to have rows, like just electronic store after electronic store after electronic store, and you could get photo floods and a turntable at the same place. And so these, not unlike B&H, where you can get a turntable and photo strobes, but these were very, very low end, no customer service, anything like that. They would just have them hanging around outside, and you could just pick up whatever size cone you wanted. You supplied your own bulb and just plugged it in. Sometimes, and I think they had a switch built into the socket itself, the light bulb socket. So I had these two lamps, and I took a tomato out of the refrigerator, and I did pony up a little bit of money for glycerin and a blue gel. And I thought I was going to be like creating like a reproduction of all these incredibly cool photographs that I had seen in the Creative Black Book, which was a photo directory of commercial photographers. And when I got to doing this, because I had really very little understanding of optics and really little understanding of how to use artificial light for anything. I got this big blast of light in the front of my tomato, and I got this blue gel, which I thought was just really swanky when I saw it through the viewfinder. But I didn't know what I needed to do to get the depth of field I wanted. So at the end, I got this photographed, and I thought it was really nifty as a sort of an art piece. But at the end of the day, it wasn't what my original intention was. And we talked about intention a whole bunch of episodes back. So I was really kind of like, it's okay, but it's beautiful, but it isn't what I intended to do. So you fast forward to the next slide, right? Next slide. This is all about intention. When I took this photograph, this was after I'd completely forgotten I had even taken the photo. The only reason why I have the slide of the the first photo that I could copy was because I had found a big box of transparencies and boxes, and when looking through them, I found that old tomato photo, and I went, "Oh my gosh, I'd forgotten about this." But before I'd found that, I am at home during the the pandemic. And, once again, I really can't go outside and photograph people like the way I usually do. And so I found myself instead taking a lot of trips to the supermarket.
When do
And
you go out and take pictures of people?
He's talking about his modeling assignments, Greg.
yeah,
Oh.
I mean, I
not
really,
street shooting.
but in the way that I really do. I mean, occasional street photograph, but in the way I usually do, which is, okay, let's make an appointment. Let's go take a bunch of photographs, and you're a happy person. You win your photogenic award, and I get great photos for my portfolio. And I couldn't do that, so I found myself in supermarket a lot. And so at a certain point, the first few months of a pandemic, for me, I found myself when I was at the supermarket, just get food and go, just get food and go. Then after a while, you just kind of really start really looking at the quality of the food, because this is, what you have to do a lot more intently than you normally do. So I found myself saying, I should just photograph a tomato, some of this produce. So I did a series of produce photos, and I really made a point to look for produce that I felt represented that fruit or vegetable in a way that I could photograph it and really capture the essence of it. So I'll cut this short. So I took this home and I lit it, and it's 2 lamps once again, but they're both white lights, and I knew exactly what I needed to do to get the depth of field. It's a different format. It's a different aspect ratio. There's a lot more, and I just let the tomato be itself. So I wasn't imposing all of this 1980s, Mad Max Interceptor, Kit from Knight Rider kind of ideas, about blue backgrounds and drama. This is a lot more sort of post, my familiarity with IKEA and Apple and all of the sophistication that goes along with this. And ironically, it also has to do a lot with my love of the work of Irving Penn. And although I hadn't really done a lot of work like his before, I really kind of in this time got a chance to really study him, because that's not a photography we really studied at Pratt, although I wish we had. And I know later on they even had Anna Winter talk about the work of Irving Penn at some point. But you get what you get when you're there, and you keep going. So anyway, I thought this was a good example of how I see things now. I'm sorry, what was that?
I feel like we went to 2 different schools, but go ahead.
Did you guys talk about Penn? Because they didn't when I went.
No, I wasn't talking about that. I mean, you say, sorry, Ken?
Yeah, we talked about Penn. Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
But what I'm saying is, you just say that with all the Knight Rider and the 80s aesthetic, and gel filters have been a part of photography like forever. I mean, how is that not a part of the photography exploration of light?
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, I didn't say, you asked how is it not. What I said was I imposed. No, what I said was I imposed a lot on the.
It looks cool. I almost prefer the first image to the second one. The second one looks like it's ready for the graphic designer to add copy.
Right, but here's the thing: whether it's not, what I'm saying is I couldn't get there, and I wasn't able to get there. My intention here was met, and that was to understand what the tomato is and to bring it to life. Previously, I had imposed all of my ideas about what a tomato is, including putting little drops of dew and this blue background and all of that. And it's a nice photo, and I can see where one would prefer it. And it's very accessible, and it's nifty. But at the same time, my intention was to get more of the tomato being itself originally, and I think, and it was also to get a deeper depth of field, to get the whole tomato and show the tomato. By actually keeping the top of the tomato in this photograph, this looks like a tomato. This looks like what a tomato really is. And the first one could be a pumpkin, could be a tomato.
And I don't agree. I think they both look like tomatoes, and I both think they both look like just different tomatoes. And I think this one looks like a tomato that's sitting in the refrigerator, while this one looks like a tomato sitting on a table. That's the only difference that I garner from that, and that's because the blue light hints at a coolness or freshness, where this one hints at a sterility, so forth.
Well,
That's my take from it, really.
you got a really groovy fridge because all the refrigerator lights that I have
Well,
are either.
the blue light is evocative of coolness and freshness, so that's what gives me the idea that that. But this one is a little different.
Sterile.
It's a different tomato altogether. This is more
It
of
is a
tomato
different
from a
tomato.
vine, where the other one was tomato from not a vine, but just tomato
Like a
from.
garden.
Right, but
Or a
here's the
garden.
thing: neither of them were
Yeah.
from the vine. Both of them were from the supermarket. But this one actually says that there's a freshness to it, and the subtlety of the light the rim light that's on the left side of this one really gives you a sense of the shape, and it's at the top also. It gives you the volume. I think the
Yeah,
other one has volume, but it's not as sophisticated, in my opinion.
right.
I think, like I said, I think it's very heavily labored. And I mean, I went a little bit before you guys,
What
but
does
they didn't talk
that
about
mean?
Penn. They didn't talk about. We only talked about Ansel Adams in terms of he's a good
What does that
technician.
mean? Heavily labored. What does that mean? Heavily labored.
I'm sorry, what was that?
What does that mean? Heavily labored.
I think by in this particular case, by imposing this idea of a blue light. Why is there a blue light?
Why
I know why
not?
there was a blue light. The blue light was in that one because I was kind of copying what I saw in a book,
Okay.
in a creative directory, and I didn't do a good job at it either because this may look interesting to you, but it doesn't have the gradient that it should have. I mean, the blue really should have been someplace else. And I remember doing this photo, and I was struggling with it quite a bit. And I remember,
where are the variations? Where's your other test shot?
well, out of all the variations, this is kind of what they all looked like. What I'm saying is,
Okay.
there wasn't really like I said, when I approach these things, I know kind of what I'm looking to do. Now, previously I showed another tomato photo, and that was just a variant that I had done. But this is the original photo as I wanted it to create. So I knew what I wanted to do when I saw the tomato. I knew how I wanted to pose it. I knew how I wanted to format it. I knew exactly how I wanted to light it, and it was completely executed. And I knew exactly how much of this should be in focus. I knew exactly everything I wanted to do. And in the original one, 36 years earlier, it's nice, but I think even though it's a what they would call a happy accident and it's nice, I'm not one of those people who feel that anything I produce is just fantastic. I remember the disappointment I had then, and I went, oh, when I get to the studio class, I'll learn how to do this properly. But that didn't quite.
So this is as far as you got technically.
Yeah,
Well, I can see,
yeah. Well, I don't know what
you
you
made
guys. The
progress.
studio class we had was not quite what was expected or what was written in the handbook.
Okay.
So,
Mark,
yeah.
Mark, how many times over in between this first shot and this last one, how many photographs of tomatoes have you taken at separate points along those years?
None.
So basically, this is the first time
None.
you took a photograph of tomato, and this was the last time you took a photograph of tomato, and there were no photographs of tomatoes in between those two times.
None that I can remember. No.
Okay. Have you ever?
Now, here's the thing that's interesting. About 8 years before this, I had done a sketch of a tomato that looked like this on a piece of paper, but I never got around to doing it.
Okay.
Isn't a photograph. You mean a photographic sketch?
No, a sketch on a piece of paper with a pencil and like a thumbnail. I drew. I kind of knew what I wanted, so I'd been mulling around for about 8 years how I wanted to photograph this tomato. Now, the tomato's not that big a deal, but what I wanted to show in your Deuces Wild is that there are some similarities. If you look at the first one, it's in the lower right-hand corner. It's not the entire tomato, you know, and I didn't remember photographing it. When I went to photograph the second one, I kind of did very similar cropping. Not exactly the same, but very similar, you know. You know, there's a space on the left side with this one, and the other one is space on the right. The background, you guys pointed out that it's blue. I'll point out the fact that it's lighter, or at least it was intended to be lighter. That sort of bright light in the front really isn't what it's supposed to be. And the other one, I have a light background, right? So there are similarities in the subject matter and the composition, and even to some extent the rendering, despite the disparity in tastes due to time and influences. You know, like I said, you know, in the 80s, I was influenced by very limited media. Since then, I've consumed a lot more media, and my tastes have become more sophisticated, and I've certainly studied more, and I knew what I wanted to do when approaching this, and I knew how to do this when approaching it. And I think that's really the big difference. But otherwise, I think you pointed out, Ken, they're both tomatoes, and there are a lot of similarities. And I mean, I think the original point of your exercise was to kind of show what the similarities are. Now, yeah, when I see a tomato, for some reason, the bottom part of it doesn't seem to really matter to me. It's the volume, all right? It's not necessarily on end, you know. It could be tilted, but it could be flat on the table, but there's a sensibility of the only thing that exists is that tomato, that vegetable, and the top is prominent. You know, I may not have known enough to keep the vine in the original photo, but in the second one, I knew by then, oh, I should keep the vine. So I think my sensibility has only changed with taste and age, but pretty much, you pointed out, it's just two tomatoes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and I'll just
Boy, that was
again,
the
I'll just
closest thing to art speak I've ever heard. Go ahead, Ken.
I'll just end it here with saying that the first tomato is those tomatoes you get in a 3-pack and with the cellophane wrap, right? That's that tomato. The other tomato is the one you buy fresh at the produce store, and it's sitting on the shelf and it's not prepackaged in cellophane. That's the difference I see between those, and those are the memories that I bring to those two pieces of I think tomatoes are fruits, right? They're not veggies, right?
They are fruits.
They're fruits. Yeah. So 2 pieces of fruit. Okay. If you no more questions, let's move on, Greg.
It's like, ooh, it's like there were more words than images. So, all right, let's move right on.
Yeah, Greg, you're up next. So let's
I am up next.
Yes.
I am up.
Yeah.
I am up. All right. So our next.
You want to preface it, or you want to go straight to the image?
Wow. I'm doing my preface right now, man.
Okay. Okay. All
Look
right.
at the T-shirt day. I didn't get the memo. Oh, I have a T-shirt on. Hey,
No.
I do. All right. Seeing the same way years apart. Deuces Wild. Show 2 different photographs you took that were taken years apart and speak to how and why they look the same. Well, that's almost, I don't want to say too easy. Was this yours, Ken?
Yes, it is mine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, come on. You. I need another mind bender, man. You need to come up with.
Greg, this is not, Greg. This is not a simple conversation about things. It's about personality type. It's about what you see, how you see, and why you see yourself over years doing the same exact thing in a different way and seeing the same exact way. So, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I guess I swear, you know, because like Mark was saying, his experience at Pratt was a certain way, and he got certain things and wish he had gotten other things, but you know, it's kind of like cherry picking, you know, because people talk a lot and say a lot, and I don't remember a lot of what Susan Sontag had to say, but there were certain things that different photographers said. I forget his name. He was a famous.
Somebody said something.
He said because like he would just pass around the attendance sheet at the beginning of the class. And I always sign my name upside down. And he came over to me one day and he's like, you're writing it the way the camera would see it, aren't you? I was like, busted. You know, I thought I was being clever. But I had another professor that was like, what about the human condition? Show me the human condition. Everybody can go out and take a picture of one thing or another, but the most impactful stuff are the ones that hit you emotional. And I thought about that, and I was like, I really didn't like, shooting on the street at the time because it was too. Well, I mean, New York, in a way. I mean, you go up and you take a picture of somebody, and you're not artful at it. They're like, "Hey, what are you taking my picture for?" And you could, lose either the camera or some teeth. That being said, there's an art to it. There's practice. There's a progression to that. And I had gotten to a point where shooting on the street was a little too emotional for me, so I had to back off, and I started shooting landscapes and flowers and stuff like that, and portraits and the like, everything else. But then I went back to it, and I realized that these people had stories, and I wanted to do a story, kind of like that guy that did the People of New York or something like that, and it's like, yeah, he stopped and he talked to these people, like I used to do, but I was getting too close to it. But uh, there's something, and me, personally, going through a journey and being homeless myself, I was like, if somebody stopped me and asked me about my life, they'd be like, wow, what are you doing out here? And that's okay, So here I am, and it still affects me seeing, rich folks on one side of town and crazy, mentally challenged folks uh, houseless on the street. That still kind of impacts me, and probably be doing some volunteer work um, at the VA so I can help out other vets and people with, trying to make their way out of that morass. But this one, when I was up in Sacramento, because you could put up the first one. I think this was back in I want to say '08 or '09, and drove up there to see my son, and flew in at Sacramento, California, the fourth largest economy on earth, great city, and the capital that was used in one show, and Dr. Quentin Medicine won in the Capitol in Washington, beautiful building, and I'm driving over there, and I look, and dude is like laid out, this is like a row, a street of all these state office buildings. And I'm like, holy moly. So I went, I parked my car, and I walked back, well, first just to see if he was alive, because people were walking by him, didn't check, didn't look twice, So he was breathing, and I went over, and that little thing that he's lying on, the little mushroom, is the heat exhaust from the state building. So it's warm, you know. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So I backed off, and um, I got some other shots, but this one was, probably the most one that, I mean, because I got some workers walking by, and not really even looking. They didn't even look at me, taking a picture of him with them in the background. Like, so I was like, wow, is that callousness? Is that, they're used to it? Is that a difference? I don't know. But I felt this was kind of, you know, I mean, any more, could it be any more, personal? And then you put this big arrow. Hello. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I really, had a pack of cigarettes in the street, like just another piece of refuse, But this is a person, and there were no. I had gone back later in the day. No, you know, uh, city services came out and asked him if he's all right. Checked him out, took him to the hospital. Nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
go to the flash forward, and this was that is earlier this year. I was back in May of this
Wow.
year, and that looks like the same dude. It doesn't look like he's moved, And not only that, now he's got, more, I won't say friends, but there are more people huddling around this concrete mushroom, you
Hmm.
know? I mean, and the idea of mushroom is a metaphor for a fungus or an unwanted growth or whatever. That's beyond me. That's just the way it looks to me. And as far as what carried over from my Pratt experience was, you know, this is part of the human experience. I mean, there's still trash in the street right in front of them. Guy is lying in the same place he was lying 21, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. And it hasn't gotten better. It's actually gotten worse.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm confused. You said the first one was '08, but that's not correct, right?
I'm not sure if it was '08 or later. It could have been like
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm
one of the,
sorry. Good. You said 2008, right? So 2008 versus 2020. So 12 years ago. Okay. 13
yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, it just kind of made me scratch my head. I mean, and he's got somebody's shoe as his pillow. It just hits me as far as just the human condition of it is pretty stark.
Okay. So
And
can I ask you a question?
go ahead. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So the difference between the first photograph and the second is about 13 years. So once taking the first photograph, right? The first photograph, was
Yeah.
that your signal over the years to continue to go past this particular spot to photograph something different or something the same over the 13 years in between?
Well, I have been back, and I do usually drive up that street because it's a really grand, a grand boulevard.
Okay.
Um, and I do look, and actually, I mean, I am hoping that it would get better. You know, I did not expect this.
Hmm.
Where they're just camping out on the main street of, the fourth largest. It just doesn't fit. Like, I was talking about something before. It's like all of this wealth, the fourth largest economy on the planet, and just yards, a couple of hundred yards from the seat of power. You've got this. It
Hmm.
doesn't. It doesn't. It
That's
doesn't make
that's
sense.
at the state. That's near the state capitol, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, right near the state cap. And I understand. There's economics. There's desire. There's free will. Maybe some mental health issues or whatever. But I know they were talking about Reagan had closed mental health outlets for folks. But
So
um,
I have a question for you. This
go
seems to
ahead.
be a recurring subject matter for you.
Go
What
ahead.
what is the what exactly
Don't ask me
is
for
the
the
story?
solution.
Well, what exactly is the story specific to Sacramento? Because you're revisiting this and you're very much interested and you're very much, you're extraordinarily sympathetic to what's going on there. You're photographing people. What is the story specific to Sacramento about how and why this kind of living condition continues to grow?
I wouldn't say so much sympathetic as empathetic. And what's
Okay.
my connection to it? I mean, it's not necessarily. It didn't necessarily have to be Sacramento. I mean, I could stay right here where I am now. I could be in New York. Actually, I didn't see that many homeless people in New York when I was there. To be
Oh,
honest,
they're
I'm
here.
not sure.
They're here now. We have a friend, a mutual friend, who's photographing homeless people right
Okay,
at
I'm
this
not saying
time.
they're not there. I just
Right,
haven't seen it like this.
Hmm.
right, right,
Okay, and here, because there's so many open spaces
right.
there, and there are so many tent cities everywhere, under bridges, vacant lots. They're like I won't say
Well,
ubiquitous, but they're all over. But my
well, I mean,
connection to it was that what I saw was a sort of a singular indifference with the one guy laid out. What happened there? And then, uh oh, blanket. Okay. And the other one was that the problem was expanding in a way that I didn't expect it. Yes, I've been through there several times because my son was up there, and I'd go up to visit or whatever. And this time I went to visit a friend, and I was just floored by this, and um, it's just seeing, like Ken's uh, topic
Well,
discussions were just,
you know, like you said, it doesn't have to be Sacramento. I mean, you've photographed homeless people in other spaces, and I was just wondering, you know, what is in your idea the root of this? I mean, you know, you hear things here in New York about how this happens. There's a variety of things. There's, you know, mental illness, substance abuse, job inequity, all the above. I mean, what are kind of the things that people are saying there are the, you know, the causes or even some of the solutions for some of this? Because, you know, you've got a very prominent celebrity. I mean, you're in the middle of a gubernatorial runoff soon, right? I mean, it's Gavin Newsom versus Caitlyn Jenner. And one of the things Caitlyn Jenner talks about is the homeless issue. And so you're talking
you
about
know,
the fourth largest economy. You know, what's going on in that state specific to the homeless issue?
well, it's cost of living. It's very expensive to live here, and developers who are getting the write-offs for for their complex or something, they want to make profit. They don't want to be builders of something that's not going to make money. So who is it's a question of who's going to build these low income housing. Then once they get built, they're like, oh nope, we're going to change them into condos. When you're just building low income or no income to get people, it has to be a state uh, sponsored thing. But then people are saying, well, I'm paying money into the state. I don't want my money to go there. So it's a matter of will. You know, do you want to help these people get off the street? There has to be, like back in, depression days, there had to be the will to lift the country out and move it, towards a better day for everybody. So I mean, I don't have the solution. I can't say one way or the other why it is the way it is.
Right, right.
But
No, I
I,
didn't expect you to be able to solve homelessness. I was just wondering if you were paying, you know, attention, like what the sides are about all that.
I'm paying attention to it, and as soon as I'm in a position where I can, do some volunteer work or uh, social work or whatever that I can do to help wherever I can, I'll be happy to do that. But as far as photographically, I can't just walk by something and say, another homeless. You know, not something I can do because houseless is it's real. People are still being evicted because they lost their job for COVID. So I mean, it's a weird place to walk. I just wanted to show that. What do you say? Deuces wild, being the same way years apart. And this is something that I'm going to see for a while. I hope it does go away, so I don't have to photograph anymore. But for now, if I see it, I'm shooting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yep.
Anything?
Nope.
Yeah,
Nope. I'm
thanks.
good. I'm good.
Moving right along.
Okay, so I'm going to take the anchor shot, and basically the the gist for what I was getting at really was just we're all humans, and humans are geared for patterns and repeatability, and so mostly everything we do in life is a repeating pattern of something, and we as photographers have a certain vision, but that vision really is rooted in a very small uh, segment of our mind, and we really don't think too much externally about every possibility because every possibility is just physically or mentally impossible to do. But that's why a lot of it's always a good idea to challenge yourself and photograph things that you normally wouldn't photograph and that it just takes time, and it's a learned experience. So I guess I'm trying to stretch it to try and figure out why my system is actually now not working. Can you give me a second and I'll get started because okay, there's my first image. So what I want to do is I want to bring up my first image, and the first image was a photograph taken. Of course, we all travel during the day, and if you're a commuter, you commute. And in some cases, you commute the same way, the same day, 5 days a week, almost at the exact same time. You're going home, almost at the exact same time. You're going to work at the exact same time. You're coming home. You're eating lunch at the same time. You're doing things at the same time. Repeatability. With that, I'm almost at the same point at the same day doing the same exact thing. So what I'm going to see, the same exact thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to photograph almost in the same exact way. Given the constrictions of the space and the place that we're at, it's your images are going to basically look almost the same. So this photograph was taken back in 2008. And in 2008, I don't remember if this was a weekend or a weekday. I think this was a weekend, but nonetheless, I was just probably out shooting in the Grand Central area. So this is Grand Central Station, and this is, of course, the subway platform. And what's interesting is that, of course, the shot that replaces it was taken, or the shot that I'm comparing it to, taken last year, 2020. And the similarities are quite there. Same spot, not the same spot, but the same station, giving the same perspective, doing looking for almost the same exact thing. And it's just kind of interesting how our minds, even years apart, I sort of remember the first photograph. I remember taking it, but I only remember taking it when it came up in my archive that I saw it. I don't necessarily have the recall that I had it there. I had to go looking for it. And so therefore the relationship between this image and this is in my head, because when I took this photograph, I wasn't thinking about this one, not at all. It just so happens I was thinking about what this looked like when I was there. So I'm always doing the same thing and looking for a similar view. And I can tell you, as I was researching some of my archive for this particular episode, I've photographed this particular perspective on this particular station, not necessarily at this particular spot, dozens, if not multiple dozens of times. So I can actually show you over a period of 10 years how often I photographed this perspective. What am I looking for? Am I really looking for something, or am I just looking to take up time while I'm there? Do I see a vision, and is the vision what I actually forgot that I photographed back in 2008? Because if I had the recall of 2008, would I then necessarily take this photograph? These are questions that I think about as I'm, going over the years and saying, well, if you photograph this one time, does it need to be photographed again? You know, this particular spot, this particular way, or could be something different, you know? And you can subscribe this sort of thought to almost anything you photograph. Do you need to revisit that image that you took 10 years ago for a different perspective, or is it one and done? I bring that up to you for question or answer.
I think this particular image appreciates where you are as a place that is, I don't want to say more inviting, but a place that is more comforting in some way. The first one, there seems to be a little bit more tension in it, not only because it's black and white, but because there are people and you're getting like a slither of like what's in the door, and there are people walking away, and it's a vertical, so it's much more constrained sense of space from left to right, and you only have a little bit of the column, you only have that little bit of column in the front showing you the 42, and the other one, there are a lot more columns. A lot more iterations of the number 4, so, and there aren't any people. It's almost like the people in this one really don't matter. It's like this is about this space and how it exists. Whether, does the train still go through the station if there's no one there to get on? And, that's kind of like what this question answers, that, the MTA rolls on no matter what. And the only thing that indicates that there's life other than the enhanced cleanliness is the light. You know, that
Yeah,
little ring,
I'll
that little
zoom in a
green
little
ring.
bit. I'll zoom in
Yeah.
just a little bit. Oh, you can't see it, but
Oh, there you go. There's that one. There's that one conductor.
yeah, with their head sticking out the window.
Right.
But that's not the essence of the photograph. But you're
Right,
right.
right.
But that's
I didn't get a sense that was, and you know, it's just really, you know, maybe like a little slither of stairwell there, but if you don't know it's a stairwell, you don't know what that is. I mean, that's a New York thing. You gotta know that space, but it seems to be more of an appreciation of the space for itself. Where the first one is sort of like I'm in this space and there's a lot of things going on. You've got this moving room and you've got a platform that doesn't go anywhere, and they're juxtaposed against one another for a little while, and people walk along it, and then the other people are sitting there as if this is normal, you know, and it is, but it's not certainly not a natural occurrence.
right. But speaking to not necessarily, let's not concentrate on the subjective nature, but just the objective point of view. So if
I
we were to
like that
just go
it.
ahead, go ahead, Greg.
I like well, between the two, I mean, your choice of vertical to horizontal is is big. This one feels very claustrophobic. This feels like New York subway. But I love that it's the vanishing line. You know that everything is going to the end of the platform, and you can't help but draw your eye down the platform. You know the lights are coming in, the floor is coming up, plane is going to it, and that vanishing line is just. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's design. My eye is just enjoying being in that space, and it says New York is claustrophobic. But then the next one, it's like going the other direction. It's like it just turned and went the other direction. But because it's uh, a wider angle, even though it feels like there's more space, it still feels a little claustrophobic. And again, the vanishing lines, it just draws me down the platform, and I really, really enjoy that. My eye is just having fun, just following the yellow all the way to the end. That that little black hole at the end of the platform.
And
Um,
I think you can use that or add that as a technique that is drawing one in to actually take the photograph, because you don't have to take the photograph, but there's
no,
something there about that point of view that forces you as a photographer to say, oh hell, I need to take this photograph,
I
and you
need
have
to take
no
it.
clue
Yeah,
why.
I think part of it has to do with the reflective nature of the train cars. I mean, you know, you've got the reflective nature of the train cars, and then you've got the anti-slip coating of the platform, and so they mirror each other just enough to make it look like the platform is a little bit wider than it is. And so you've got a horizontal image where your vertical space and your horizontal space are merged visually in the lower left-hand corner all the way to that vanishing point. And so there's a vague sense of reality and unreality mixed together in that, because you know you kind of look, wow, what this it's like there's, you know, I know it's a reflection, but it's not a mirror image exactly, you know, but it kind of has all the elements of a mirror image. And so for me, it's sort of like this yellow road that's going into the abyss. And it's not made of brick, but certainly with tile work, it does give me a sense of a yellow brick road, even if I don't acknowledge it until I'm talking about the photograph.
that and it's kind of almost eerie or Twilight Zoney because you know it's well I know it's New York. Any New Yorker knows that a subway platform that empty is unnatural. You know, it's like what is going on here? It's either
Right. But
3 in the
see,
morning
yeah,
or there's
exactly.
something wrong.
Exactly. And that's the thing about it, because
But even at
I
3 in the
think,
morning, there's like a bunch of people. Like, go
right,
ahead.
well, right. But I think, and that's another thing I wanted to touch on, which is there's a certain sense of hyperbole that permeates a conversation when, in general, people they're so good at hyperbole, it's not funny. And the case in point is that this could have been 3 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't. It could have been 5 o'clock in the morning, but it wasn't. It was the middle of the afternoon. But someone would come up and say, Well, it's during the pandemic, and that would be the case for afternoon. But if you weren't sure of the day, then you'd bring up some hyperbolic thought to support that theory, not knowing anything about the day or the time of the image. And I
Right.
think as viewers, there's a tendency to do that without having some objective information as to what the image is, what the date, time, and place of the image. And
Right.
as humans, I think we tend to do that a lot, which is we tend to ingratiate our ideas and vision to support a thought without objective fact. And that drives me wild. And I
In a
got no,
good way, or
huh?
drives you to take
No,
in a
because
good way,
that's,
or drives you to take the picture again.
well, no, it's that disconnect that we have with it as being viewers. Because as viewers, we don't have all the information of a photograph if there's no word to guide you. We're just there, so therefore we have to think of in our own thought, our own history, what this means to us, and therefore we think of grandiose things instead of just something that's plain. And I think that comes to being because you are presented as a viewer with an image that is by itself something more than just average, right? So when we present you with the photograph, we're telling you that this is more than just average. So therefore, as the viewer, you have to come up with an idea of why this is more than just average.
Right, but
You mean like what
that's the
made me
premise.
take the picture?
I mean, the
Yeah.
presumption in presenting the photograph in this way is that it's more than just average. And here's the thing with all the photographs that we've shown tonight, and maybe some of the others, the idea that they're more than just average primarily comes from us, maybe clients, maybe museums, maybe publications. But at the end of the day, uh, a lot of the imagery uh, for a lot of people who aren't steeped in art criticism, they might go, I get it, it's a subway. I get it, it's tomato. I get it, it's homeless people. And the idea of really looking at photographs and really dissecting them is something that does come from a formal fine art aesthetic that one would get from a Pratt Institute or some other or university like that.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that's kind of part of our training
Yeah.
to have a critique, right? I mean, every class you went out, you did your work, you came back, you had a critique. I mean, and everyone kind of participated in that. So that's kind of what we're replicating here,
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah.
But it's through the prism of 30 some odd years of individual and collective experience, and so we're looking at it and we're applying a lot of our life understanding to all of our photos. I mean, and that I think is perfectly fair. No more or less than any instructor would. I mean, when they if you photograph a Pop-Tart and they look and they go, yeah, it's a Pop-Tart. Why did you put it in a toaster? It's like, well, it's a toaster pastry, isn't it? And you go, oh, well, I didn't want it to be too commercial. I thought the Pop-Tart open would say, no, it just looks like you served it in a cafe. I mean, that kind of criticism, that subjective criticism, is part of the editorial process as they taught it. And so we espouse that.
Yeah. Okay, guys. I don't want to say too long, but I just want to cut it short and see if we have any closing statements or thoughts or ideas beyond what we've talked about already.
I like revisiting the vision to see how your technique or what you see changes or how time changes things.
Mm-hmm.
I hope soon we do an episode about time because you have some interesting lap shots that I would love to see in this forum again. And to see how, you have several series actually, like downtown Brooklyn, you have old and, now, and, or anything, how people change from, one place, one time to another, or how, places, things, whatever. But that's nothing else. But I like the idea of Deuces Wild and just revisiting, because I like to see an artist's progression.
Right.
Yeah, and again, this is something good job.
Yeah. Mark?
I'm okay with it. I mean, the only thing I was going to do was, go through like a how right you are, Dectal breath. I mean, that would have been Johnny Carson, but he's been gone for a long time. So it's my requisite 80-year-old reference.
All right.
That nobody was going to know what the hell you're doing. That's like stream Johnny Carson. He has his own channel.
So all the viewers who are out there who've made it to this point, if you're still with us, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'd actually like you to comment on what you've heard today, and we will respond in kind with a comment to any questions, concerns, comments, or anything you have. Are we on the right track when we think photography? Do you think we're just a bunch of quirky quacks, or do you think we have something serious to contribute? These are all questions that come up. These are things and ideas that we think about. We tend to
Is that the only conjunction that we can use?
But as I've sort of alluded to, we tend to ingratiate ourselves with certain strengths and ideas that may or may not exist outside of our head, objectively. So let us know what you think. If you're still following us, we appreciate you being here, but we'd also like to have you involved with these conversations. Give us ideas about what you'd like us to talk about, photographically or maybe not photographically. That way we can just sort of explore more ideas just outside these walls of photography. With that in mind, we thank you for being with us. We hope you enjoyed what we've talked about, and we hope to see you again. My name is Kenneth Nelson. I'm here with Mark Skinner and Greg Cleghorn. We are the 3 Black Pratt grads, and we'll see you next time, okay?
Wow.
Adios.